welcome back. I'm Chandra Vimala, and thank you for joining our third show. We have a guest speaker today, and that's Megan Scott. Is that right?
Megan Bishop Scott.
And so Megan has come to the ashram, and she's a writer, but she's also worked with a lot of group homes, and so working with youth through that. And so it's exciting for you to be with us. So thank you very much for joining.
Oh,
so,
thanks for inviting me.
So we've had a lot of emails, and thank you so much for sending it. We're really excited about being able to touch base and being able to kind of answer your questions. And so it's really exciting for us that we're bringing kind of information and being able to give you some discussions around kind of what your questions are and some answers around them. So what I pulled today was around self-esteem and self-confidence. So there was quite a few questions around that. And so, and it's always tough around youth, around that time, especially around peer time and that, which I'm sure you found kind of from your home too. Did you want to tell a little bit about what your work was with the group home? And
basically what I was doing was initially writing life histories for foster kids so that they would know why they had all these self-esteem issues and why they didn't have confidence, and it was usually based in their background, something that had happened in the family. And as a result of that, I started teaching meditation to these teens at risk who actually were at the end of the line and were in danger of literally falling through cracks if something didn't happen to them. And the great thing about talking to them was even the ones who seemed like they were the group leader and the most self-assured guy in the house was the one with just as many insecurities as everyone else. So the illusion that someone has it together is flawed. No one has it together. And it was great getting these kids to talk about it, because then when they realized they were like everyone else, a lot of those problems vanished because they thought they were the only one who was messed up, the only one who had problems. And when they found out everyone came from the same thing, just depended on who had a better mask on.
Yeah, and that's kind of from one of our shows that, when I did research around that we always think that youth are always wanting to speak with their peers, and that was completely opposite. That they didn't want to speak, and you can kind of, when you start to think about it, that if they say something, they may be laughed at or may not, be included anymore, and so sometimes a risky thing of touching base, so it's being held in, and a lot of issues can come out of that. So. Which we can kind of see. So I'll start with our first question.
Great.
And so it's a question from Ravi from Bangalore, so thank you. I keep beating myself up about not being able to get it done, and more pressure from my boss on work. I can't remember anything, and I need to kind of work for my projects, so more pressure is being put upon me. Parents keep saying they don't understand what the problem is, that just get it done. Like, why is it just that you're having trouble with your projects and remembering things? So Ravi's saying, I'm just really stuck and I don't know what to do.
Well, one thing that a lot of people don't understand is a key sign of a samskara is fuzzy thinking. So when you are suffering from an engram, when you've got an emotional blow that you've taken in the past and you haven't resolved it, it results in clouded thinking. So being in a pressurized situation and getting mad at yourself because there's no clarity, it just gets fuzzier and fuzzier. It's because it has triggered an old emotion in you, an old pain. And not only the meditation helps, but that's where heavy yoga helps, because doing a physical activity will actually punch these things out. And so rather than getting caught in the trap of going round and round, why aren't I better, concentrate and beating yourself up, just going and doing something heavy physical, doing some sun salutations, doing something. It's amazing the clarity that will come from that, because you'll move that emotion out. And there are other techniques that are business related, but the first thing that I realized in my own past was fuzzy thinking was because of something old that I had to get rid of.
Well, and our thoughts, are with our actions. So the more that we struggle, the more we're bringing in struggles. And so that's just a constant thing of our thoughts. And when we have those kind of negative thoughts, it impacts our action. And so all of a sudden we're frozen and we can't really think of things. So it's kind of being able to reverse that thinking that, I'm able to do this, and things will be really good, and I'm going to really enjoy, and I'm going to make some mistakes, and that's okay. I'll just be able to stop back for a few minutes, and take a break, or you know, it is really good to do activity, and, you know, we'll talk more about kind of meditations as well.
Right.
But we are, you know, where the struggle gets caught into the struggle. So it just kind of makes that circle bigger. And so, and kind of, I think we get into that bigger picture, you know, see projects, we see things, and, you know, we don't step back to take it into little pieces, which makes it workable. You know, we're all of a sudden, well, I can make it kind of more workable. So, you know, we worked on kind of, it's kind of a big whiteboard, and we started to do sticky notes, and so we separated it out per day, like what I needed to do, from 10 to 11 or 11 to 12. And sticky notes are easy to move around, so at 10 it's not that important. I can move that to this afternoon. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm doable. Like, I can do that within an hour. You know, I can do that within, you know, but we get stuck looking at kind of this whole big picture, and we need to know how to start.
The panic attack.
The panic attack.
Yeah.
And so, because, you know, Swamiji says, you know, again, like, you know, just like you said, the constant struggling is done caught into the struggling. So we just kind of get into that bad cycle.
Yeah, and then, you know, every workplace has people crying in the bathroom. Like, it's not unusual for that stress to just get out of control. Yeah.
And then Swamiji kind of talked around what we call gibberish meditation, and I found that really helpful.
Yeah.
Well, what gibberish meditation is really that, you know, it's not about making words, it's about actually that gibberish. And finding a place where, you know, people don't hear you, and you spend 10 minutes of just going blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I love that one.
Just gets it out, you know, because it's all stuck inside.
Well, and you stomp your feet and you wave your hands, so it's a great release. Yeah.
And, you know, it's the one thing I love about, you know, what Swamiji says too, that when we feel that, it just, you know, we're alive and we're actually putting ourselves out there to do specific things. And so, you know, it's we're not, you know, dull, and we're not like sitting and not doing anything. So it's a beautiful thing that you're feeling this, because it just means you're putting yourself out there.
Right. And
that your boss and other people see that in you. And it's kind of building that kind of, they see it, then, you know, again, we have to look within ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question, and if we don't, please, you know, write back in, and you know, we'll continue to kind of work on that. But you'll find that some of the questions are a little bit, you know, similar, and so, you know, hopefully we'll kind of continue to kind of answer some of those questions as well.
Right.
So the next one was from Naveen from Delhi. And she said, I'm having really trouble accepting myself. I always look at my friends and think, why am I not like them? And do you think if I change the way I look, it'll help others accept me?
That's sad. What I found interesting going through school was I felt like I was the strangest person in school, and I didn't fit with any group, and I didn't dress like them, and I had the exact same reaction. And now I'm considered the most unique person from my graduating class, and people look up to me, and yet I spent the whole time wondering why I wasn't more like them. So it is a very hard time in life. Like, I'm not going to try and make it easier than it is. Like, the fact that anyone survives school is astounding to me, because it's the most pressure. You're stepping out as an individual for the first time. You're constantly judging yourself, and you know, don't change how you look. Like, Swamiji loves how unique we are, loves that every single person that comes in front of him is amazing looking, and that Bhakta Swami even reminded us when we were talking about the possibility of a reality show being filmed here, and they were talking about the look of people who would be on the show, and he said, everybody's beautiful. And it was a really good reminder that you have your own qualities, so please don't change what that is.
And that's, you know, exactly that we are very unique, and that every single person is brought down here. And I always like to say that, you know, even for fingerprints, there's not one that's identical. And there's a reason for that. Even twins. And you'd always think twins maybe have, like, you know, that, you know, the same fingerprint, or that. There's not one in the world. So it's saying, you know, that you are unique, and it's exciting time. And I know that it's a difficult time, but it's such an exciting time, because you're finding yourself. And so trying out different things, and just, you know, what's going to happen is people are going to start being attracted to who you really are. And then that will start to be building kind of your friendships. So it's just a beautiful time, and that you start to kind of blossom on kind of who you are. And the other piece that I really loved about what Swamiji said, if we were supposed to be like everybody else, then that would be how we would be created. And so it would be like a car factory. And so it's just kind of like to-toom, to-toom, to-toom. And, we have a Brad Pitt and Angie Jolie, and we just have, we just kind of keep making them, and they just keep moving along. Right?
Brad number 5,000.
Brad number 5,000. Snap.
Yeah, really.
Right? That's right. But it's true. Like, not, it's not the way it's supposed to be when we're here. And so, just really enjoy, have fun, and kind of start to, explore different places of yourself. And, if you love something like dance, then you're going to start attracting people that are like dancing. And, if you like books, you're going to start attracting people about books.
And actually, it's really interesting to read biographies of people you admire, because I guarantee you that the most successful, prominent people in the world had that insecurity in school. Like, they were usually the strange one, or the one that didn't fit in. Like, you rarely find someone who was in the pack, and the most popular, who then went on to really make it.
Look at like Bill Gates and like all of them.
The real original ones. Johnny Depp. A lot of the people we admire didn't fit in, didn't look like anybody else. So sort of like you say, celebrate that uniqueness in yourself. And you don't know how many people are wishing they looked like you.
And that's really true. We always think that, but other people are also looking at us going, oh, I wish that you did that. And, that's where I wish that there is more talking, because, working with youth, I've found that a lot of people say the same thing. And sometimes I put them all in. I used to work at a school, right? And so everybody would be saying about this, about everybody else, and I'm like, this is insane.
That's right.
So like, I went into the school and I said, everyone's talking about everyone else, saying, I wish that I was like her, and I wish I was like that. And so it ended up like the whole school was pointing at other people.
And the funniest thing in the world is the first class reunion. You go to your high school 10 years later, and everyone is finally talking, and they're like, I always thought you had it together. Well, I always thought you had it together. And everyone just laughs, because all of that was just an illusion.
So enjoy yourself. Find out, all the things that you love to do, and, start to blossom, and you will start attracting people that will be the same. And so, just really enjoy that kind of period of time.
And make sure, if some of that insecurity is coming from your family, like I know my mother was very critical, and she was trying to help me come into my own. But what it was constantly criticizing every single thing I put on, or the way I had my hair. And so I was very rattled every time I walked out of the house. I felt like I didn't look good enough. So it's tricky disconnecting from criticism of brothers or sisters or
family probably is one of the hardest. Because no matter what, your parents are your parents, or your family is your family. And so those things are really difficult. But, I always like to say to young people is that they're people too. And what's happened is that, they have their own samskaras, and so they have had their parents say probably the same thing as them, right? And a lot of times, just parenthood is not easy. And so a lot of times it's just that they're just following through with what a parent has done in the past and generation has done. And so they just kind of automatically do things. And I think, if we sat down with them, which I have, they don't really know why they're doing that. It's just they have some guilt, or the parent has kind of done that. And I know, like, my father did that. Like, they come from very strong German, Danish background. And, everything was never good enough. Like, you have to do 200%. And even then, like, could you have done a little bit, like, better, right? And, when I kind of sat down with him, as he got older, he says, I don't really know why I did that. Just because that's what my dad did. And, I mean, they had, like, raising kids and everything else. And, so it's all of a sudden, like, I don't know, it's just something that my father
do what's
did.
familiar, not what's right.
I did my father. So, and so it's just kind of starting to step back to say, they're people too, and they're trying, and sometimes it's out of kind of ignorance that they're doing that. So it's kind of sometimes giving a break, and then being able to just kind of step back and look within yourself. And I know that one can be probably one of the hardest, is kind of from family members. So.
But that's why it's a great age to be meditating. It really is, because it locks you into your core. Like, my son is multiracial, and so he doesn't look like anybody. And in school, that could have been a real problem. And he'd always meditated, and so he just would, oh well, you know, it was amazing to me that he didn't let it get to him. And all I can attribute it to was that he meditated.
Well, and that's really true. Like the meditation and activity, when you spend time with yourself and you're just kind of being kind of calm within yourself, and so it's easier, you know, to say, okay, you know, this is where I am. And we've got all bumpy roads. It doesn't change in youth, it changes in all our life, that, you know, we continue to have that. So it just kind of settles you enough to just say, you know what, this is where I am right now, and that's just okay.
Well, the analogy my son had was, we're all on the same whitewater rafting trip. It's when you're meditating, you're in the boat with a life jacket on. If you're not meditating, you're in the water next to the boat. Like, we're all going on the same trip, but at least the meditation gets you in the boat.
Yeah, with a life jacket.
With a life jacket. It's a little easier.
Which is really true. I've always thought of that, you know, that we're going down the river and like we've got rocks, and
you can't avoid it.
All of us do.
Yeah.
And so those rocks can be fears and worries and like all of that. Yeah. And when you're in like the boat with the life jacket, you're going to go over, but you're not going over when your body is going through it. And so that's truly what meditation and kind of the activity, like if it's walking or, you know, out and laughter. I really believe that laughter really does.
Remember to cut yourself a break and
so
have fun.
Yeah, your son's smart. That's tricky. So we have a question from Anita, and she's in Vancouver, and that's Canada. So she said to please help me. All I only think about is my failures, and anything that I succeed, it's the failures that take over. I always feel that everyone is so much more competent and confident than me, which we talked a little bit about. And I always now avoid new challenges because of that. And I had a time where someone was really laughing at me, and that just really closed me up. So, you know, how do I start kind of getting back to respecting myself and not...
I remember reading a long time ago, someone said that 99% of the things our mind tells us are from something it's heard. So most of the chatter going on in our brains is from fathers, mothers, teachers, friends, the news, the TV, and so when your mind is just left to run amok, it does that. Oh no, that wasn't good enough. Oh no, that wasn't... Like, it's non-stop chatter, and it's rarely true. Like, and that's where teaching it to be quiet, it's like, they say it's like training a wild monkey, you know, teaching it to just be quiet, because all it's doing is repeating what it's heard. It's not coming... Einstein knew that his mind wasn't coming up with his scientific theories. When he emptied his mind, he knew it was coming in from a higher source, like he was plugging into the cosmos. And this is one of the greatest brains, theoretically, of our time. So when you're constantly getting that criticism going, it really isn't true. It's something else is doing that chatter. But you have to make it stop. And I've literally sat down and yelled at my mind. And like, stop it, shut up, you know, because you don't need that. You don't need that constant, that wasn't good enough. Oh, I'm not going to do it right. I'm not, you know, just make it stop. You know, because it's not you.
Or just let it flow through too. Like I've done where you know, stop, and I feel like pressure sometimes. Sometimes it stops. I go stop, and it does. And other times it just goes blah, 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 blah,
right.
And so sometimes I'm like, okay, like, you know, so what? Like I've done that failure, and I just...
And that's where the gibberish
and the gibberish
meditation would be good.
And I just remind everyone, we're all human beings, and every single person makes mistakes. Everybody, you know, has, you know, people have been laughed at before, or, you know, difficulties, and so everyone has. And a lot of times we have that body language where, you know, sometimes, you know, we're pulling that towards us. So sometimes, you know, when we have that where we're looking down, or, you know, we're just kind of not sure of ourselves, that kind of increases the chance of people making kind of that laughter or things that are happening. So, you know, I've always said to youth, you know, even if you don't feel that inside, like make sure that your body language is like standing straight, and that you're looking at people. And, you know, even though you may be just devastated inside that someone's laughed, just, shrug it off, and it's okay if you go off somewhere and, have a cry or whatever, but, just have that confidence within yourself when you're doing that. But everyone does, and what's exciting is that, how are you going to learn? Like, it's kind of like getting into a plane. Like, if you get into a plane that you've never flown before, and I'm going to say fly, take off and go, and it's like, we can't do that. I mean, there's some things that we may have some natural ability.
Right.
We might be able to go, and that. The majority of the time, we need some training. We need to learn. We have to try different things out in order to allow the plane to take off. And that means that we're going to make mistakes, and that's going to have some but. You're going to learn, okay, I can't do that, I have to go there.
Well, the most famous photographers say that for every great award-winning shot, there's 1,000 shots that were taken in and around that one photo that were horrible. They were just crap. But the one showed up, and they didn't beat themselves up about the 999 bad ones. They went, eureka.
And that is true. You can do like 45 minutes of picture and you get one picture out of it. So that's really true.
So celebrate your successes, and then don't beat yourself up over the rest of it, and don't stop trying. Like, just keep trying.
Just keep trying, because everybody else is, like I said, the same.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
Yeah. Good. The next one was from Divya from My Shore, and she said it's kind of a little similar to, we've had a lot kind of around being around successful people, and they feel kind of, this one is a lot about really feeling worthless. And so, and why do I feel so worthless when I have kind of someone that's successful beside me?
Well, and again, as Swamiji said, that's too much looking out instead of looking in. We can constantly compare ourselves and find ourselves falling short. I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not an Olympic athlete, I'm not, like, you can always find somebody that you're not as good as in a field. And I think Swamiji just recommends stop comparing yourself. Just stop it. Don't, if you meet somebody who's successful, if anything, celebrate their success. A lot of people get jealous and sort of weird around a successful person. Well, I'm sure I could do that if I had the time, or they go into a weird mode. Whereas if you just, congratulations, that's, and you'll find that most of the intimidating people I've met, when I just sort of was myself and said, wow, congratulations, I love the way this happened, or I love your work, or and they start talking to you, and you find it's just a regular person. And sometimes they'll just turn around and start mentoring you. They will open doors for you if you're interested in their field. So don't let that be a barrier between meeting their being.
And that's really true. I've learned lots, like obviously from school, that I kind of had that myself, and I've always struggled with some learning disability, and dyslexia is a little bit that it's hard for sound.
Dyslexia? Okay.
Yeah, because it sounds in language. I can't say it. And so it's always been something where you see someone talking. And,
maybe just explain for a second because that's a very common thing, dyslexia.
Yeah, it's just that everything is a little bit different, but it's the sounds that I have trouble with language, especially with mine. Sometimes the words and numbers reverse for me. So those of you out there who have that going on with you, it is actually a condition that can be worked with. So me sitting in front of a camera is but how are you going to? You keep trying, right? And it does get better. It just takes a little bit more work for me, and then but some other things, it's a little bit faster, and everyone has that. You always are going to find something that you're a little bit quicker at, and other things, like for me, this just takes a lot of work. But I really found, and I never knew. I was never diagnosed until much later out of school. So I'd always kind of think, here I'm mumbling and I can't speak, and I have all this going on in my brain and that, but so I kind of felt very, didn't have a lot of worthiness sometimes, and so, but later on, as I grew up, it was just like the person that was there, they had, problems at home, and one had, tried to commit suicide, and again, like everybody has something that's going
Yeah.
on. And so
Yeah.
I learned later on to say, you know what, they have a talent in this, I want to learn from them. And so just like what you said, you know,
Yeah.
and if you're not, you know, keep yourself safe. You got to know who that is and who you can trust.
Yeah.
Right? So if somebody is, you know, where you know that they're going to, you know, say something about you, or they're not going to be respectful, or they're not going to, you know, do that piece, then, you know, don't approach. But there's lots of people out there that, let's say, if for this, let's public speaking, you know, someone's speaking to me. There's lots of people out there, you know, or even like, you know, a peer, or, you know, a family member or whatever, you know, that can kind of guide you on how to, and it's all learning. You know, all of us have learned, you know, how to lead or talk, is just, you know, from trying things out. I use the mirror a lot, and so just like looking at the mirror and being able to kind of, you know, work on that. But, you know, it's all of that. So there's lots of people out there that can kind of help you, you know, with that. But just remember that everybody has difficulties in different areas of their life, and you know, so it's just either learn or, you know, that we are all very unique. And, you know, Swamiji, like you said, talked about that. Everyone has their own kind of ways, and so sometimes he may be speaking to another person, and, you know, another person may feel left out. But, you know, it's just those moments where people, you know, need the assistance, and another person might not, and we may not see that. And so it's the same in kind of school, you know, that we work through kind of just that.
Yeah, and so when you're up against this, or, you know, in contact with a successful person, just sort of open and think, what can I learn from this person? Instead of going, oh, that, you know, just, wow, I wonder what I could learn from this person. They've got a key to an element, you know.
And just recently too, Swamiji has been talking about a lot of like rewiring the brain, and so it's kind of around the same with the thoughts and the actions that happen.
Yeah.
So, you know, about, and even if it feels really uncomfortable, it's kind of reversing it and doing I'm worthy. And sitting there just feeling that bliss and saying I'm worthy starts to actually, your brain can get rewired, and so that's kind of your DNA. And so there's lots of research out there now that's actually can be happening, because you continue to say that to yourself, your whole body, everything gets taken in, that I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy. So reverse it. And like I said, it may feel really uncomfortable, and honestly, that's what I did, you know, when I was in high school, when I was struggling with things. And then all of a sudden, it was just, I started to feel this beautiful energy come through. And, you know, I just thought it's okay, like, you know, wherever I'm at, you know. I never really kind of had a specific friend. I kind of was friends with everyone. And so I just felt, oh, that's okay. Like, you don't have to be like that. And so then the more that I kind of sat with myself and continued to do that, you know, it just blossomed more and more. And I just felt really good, you know, about myself.
Yeah,
so,
that's a great...
And it's rewiring.
And you were looking in the mirror and sort of, because that's a great technique, looking in the mirror and going, you know, no one's got those eyes, no one's got that great, you know, those shoulders are going to carry me, and making yourself look at yourself. And
that's what I, you know, taught a lot of the young people. I didn't realize, like, their body language, you know, was a lot of slumped, and they'd look down like this. And, you know, a lot of times, I don't know, it's kind of a little bit like human nature, is that, you know, they kind of pick on that. They pick up.
It's a pack mentality.
I don't know if sometimes that's even conscious, but they do pick up on it.
Yeah.
And so if, you know, you're standing straight and you're looking straight at people and you're like this, then they're like, why bother?
Yeah.
If they don't get a reaction.
Not a target.
What's the fun? And not that I mean that they're wanting to even maybe have fun. But, you know, that can just be what's happening.
Subconscious,
they just don't bother anymore because, you know, they can't see a reaction. So it's just kind of working through that. So so this one's kind of, I think, very similar as well. The Rupa is from Malaysia, and so she just said that I pretend now to be someone else, and I think we kind of talked that but I don't feel really good inside, and she doesn't really understand why, because now she's got tons of friends, and she's got tons of changes that are in her life. You know, everything is really good. She's out, you know, partying. She's got lots of people that are calling her. You know, she's just never been as busy, you know, compared to what her life was. So, but she's feeling really empty inside. And so she doesn't really understand why that's happening.
And that's just the lack of a connection with her spirit. You know, a lot of times it's the last thing we remember to kick into gear. You know, we do the body, we do the mind, and then remembering to connect with your spirit. That's the emptiness. That's just not knowing who you are inside. And even, you know, 10 minutes of silence a day is going to start filling that emptiness up. You know, so she's taking care of all the external. Now she just needs to connect inside. The analogy I gave to a lot of the foster kids was that life's like a video game. And this is the controller, and when you meditate, you plug the controller into the game console. And if you don't meditate, you're not plugged in. And that results in emptiness and a feeling of no control over what's going on. Everyone else is running around the game. You're not running around the game, or you're not in control of what's happening in the game with you. And so I think she's at the stage of the game where, like when you do any of these online games, first you create your persona. So you create the look and the tools and the skills you're going to have, and then you hit start and it starts running. So she's got all that done, but she hasn't got her soul into that being yet. So it's the same outside here. She just needs to get herself established in herself. And again, you know, 10 minutes of silence every day would start locking her into herself.
I got a little sense that too that she's changing for other people. And so the reason of that emptiness is that it's not what she really wants.
She's not
to
authentic.
Do. Yeah, she's not being who she is. And you know, looking back in my life, it's just that I have like one friend from like high school, junior high. Like, you know, you'll find that as you grow, you're going to change your friends and you're going to be changing many things. And so if you follow continually outside, you're going to just constantly be in a circle, because somebody will always want something different from you. Because, you know, it's easy for someone, right? I can just say, oh, Megan, can you do this and that, and then go off into my life, right? And so it's you that has to, you know, say, okay, I have to change this and I have to change that. You've got somebody else coming in saying, oh, well, no, Megan, I think that, you know, you should be doing this. And you're like, oh, I better be, you know, more funny. And so you're being more funny. And then someone comes and says, you know, you're being a little bit, you know, this way. I think you should be, you know, a little
more
bit
serious.
more serious about something. And you'll find, like, you know, in life, you're just going to be constantly circling. And what happens is that, you know, really gets into depression and really deep unhappiness and a disconnect on, like, your true self.
Well, not remembering how you're supposed to behave with which people starts to get. So, you know, the best thing is, like Swamiji says, get rid of all the masks. Just be who you are. And then the ones that stay with you are true friends. Like, they will be with you through anything.
I know popularity can be really, you know, something that somebody wants. I mean, but it's being kind of popular in your own group. I think we started to kind of talk a little bit. So, but you know, it's just being able to, like you said, be connecting within your own self.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of the same that John and Jeremy did the same kind of question that kind of, as we had our discussion, kind of talked a little bit about. So, so hopefully that you've gotten something, you know, that we've talked about in relation to self-confidence, and that you know, please, you know, write in if, you know, things you wanted a little bit more information, or you know, we really do, like I said, appreciate it. And you know, that's what self-esteem is. It's really being within yourself. That's, you know, worthy of yourself. And
you have to grow it. We're probably born with it, but then it gets stripped away because of all the things going on. So it really is something you have to work on putting back in yourself. But and you can bring it back. Yeah. You know, I've continued to do that myself, where, you know, I'm looking at something and then I'm thinking, you know, I got to come back to who I am and build, you know, that, and that's just going to blossom. So, you know, it's a life process, and so it's just giving yourself a break, enjoying and having a laugh upon something, and and lighten up. Just lighten up. It's and, but also that, you know, we are here to, like, kind of assist and, you know, find, you know, Swamiji, of course, has guided us in a great way, and so, you know, he's you know, a young enlightened master, and that's the beauty, you know, that so many young people have been attracted just because of that, and you know, into technology and YouTube, and you know, he just really understands what's happening in today's society, and for young people and for, you know, all people. So we are really kind of blessed to have him in our life. But you know, definitely make sure that you're connecting with someone that you know, is a little bit, you know, older as well, that can kind of help guide you, because life can get a little confusing, and it's nice to have someone with some experience to be able to kind of help you out a little bit and kind of what their experiences are. Well, and he does recommend stepping back a bit. Even though he uses technology, he doesn't let it run him, and he's even told us recently in the last few days to step back from the technology. Don't be listening to the news, watching so much TV, because it's constantly telling you you're not worthy, you're not pretty enough. Yeah, it just is always hitting you in the head. You know, you're not this, you're not this, you're not this. You have to buy this, or you're not going to be popular. So you'll find that people who just sort of roam around for days without ever turning on a TV or the internet or anything are very happy people, because it's just them in existence. You know, so remember to turn off the electronics once in a while and walk outside. That's a good idea.
From one of our shows that, you know, it came out to about 11 hours, like a day, however that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is a lot of negative. It's very confusing with what happens on, you know, the media, the movies, the music. I can't believe half of the music videos. And so it's like, who am I supposed to be?
Yeah.
And so it's, and lots of really negative. And so when you're constantly seeing that and you're bombarded by it, you don't realize that that's kind of, it's like rewiring your brain. You know? Like you're taking in all of these messages.
Yeah.
And so we're just saying, you know, please, you know, start to cut back from it. And, you know, that it's not.
These messages are not coming from enlightened beings. They're coming from flawed, neurotic people. So just remember the source of all this media input. You know, it's not true just because you saw it. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much for
that was great.
us. And so join us for our next show on Thursday. And thank you for joining us.